Okay, so we're going to go to the next section, which, as I mentioned before, that all of this information is strictly confidential. So please feel comfortable in providing me the information, all the details. Could you tell me now, and be as descriptive as you can about your life in Russia? What happened to you in Russia, and what were the reasons that you're now seeking asylum here in the United States? This section, I'm going to be on my computer. While you're speaking, I'm going to be taking information down on my computer. So I'm asking you to stop if it's speaking a little bit too quickly, and likewise, you can stop me as well. Okay, you can begin.
As I said, I worked as a journalist in Moscow, and this was my only job after I graduated from Moscow State University. So I went to work for the Beacon Radio, which is known as an opposition radio in Russia.
And could you tell me a little bit more about Beacon Radio? What you said it's an opposition media. Could you tell me a little bit more about the history of Beacon, and about a little bit more about what type of broadcasts or news it produced?
So the radio was created after Soviet Union, I think, collapsed, and it was created as an independent radio station sponsored by some businesses, and it was known to provide alternative or different news from the state television and state radio news. I always dreamt working there when I was in university. This radio is well known, and it's mentioned in different reports of the State Department that I attached, and in different human rights reports. And so the name is very well known in the West as well. And so it's a very famous, one of the most prominent independent radio station. In March 2014, when I went to this largest rally, I just ran. I remember I managed to escape. Nothing specifically happened to me, but I witnessed a lot of arrests and beatings in the street.
Okay, thank you. Okay, but nothing specifically happened to you. You said you managed to escape, and how did you manage to escape? If the police were beating people or arresting people, how did you manage to escape?
Everyone just ran, and they targeted mostly men I saw. So I felt like because I was a young woman, the police didn't run after me specifically, but they arrested a lot of men I saw. Some women ran to the police, so they grabbed them too, but I ran away and hide in the side streets with other people and friends.
Okay, thank you. And could you just briefly explain, or if you remember, I know this was more than 8 years ago when you attended this rally, but how you felt as a participant, and when you saw the police beating and detaining people, how were your feelings? What did you feel like when this was going on?
I was very scared, and I felt something changed dramatically in the country because so many people came out, and at first I felt safe because of so many people were in the streets, and mostly young people, and many people I knew, so I felt safe. But then when I saw the violence, I saw them beating people badly and pushing them into the vans and detaining them in hundreds, and there was some blood and people lying in the street and the police beating them. So first time I felt scared, unsafe, and also feeling that what happened to the country now, we cannot go back, that the government now openly is violent and ready to kill people and beat them like that. So
Okay.
it was a shock. So I was in shock about what's been happening at that time.
Okay. Thank you very much. You mentioned then a second rally, a second protest that you attended. Could you tell me approximately when that happened during the second protest?
I think it was September because I remember the school year just started, and there was different.
In September, what year was it? September, what year?
That was same year after this big protest. So this is a kind of second biggest protest. That's why I remember where I went. It was September 2014. So there was continuing aggression in Ukraine by Russia. So we went again, following the calls from different opposition figures. So they organized a second rally. There was less people because people were just scared to go out, and many students were scared to go out because they would be expelled from universities, and people already knew from the spring rally that they can fire you, detain you, question you. So I saw much less people in the street in September.
And did you, during this September rally, the September protest, could you explain a little bit more about your particular activities, your particular role at this time? What did you do at this rally? Could you explain a little bit about that?
So I was not as a journalist. I went as a private person with my boyfriend and my friends, and we held the placards and the signs saying no to war, that we're against the annexation of Ukraine territories. So that was the thing that we followed the call of the opposition leaders to bring the signs. So this may be first time I carried a large sign that I made in this rally.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And could you tell me anything else specifically about that rally, about any other details that you like to explain that happened during the rally, or anything in particular?
Because this rally was led by opposition leaders. Again, I was naive. I thought this time we were safe because many famous people and leaders came out. But again, they start beating and arresting a lot of people. It was a small rally. Actually, I was even more scared because there was no large crowds to hide with. But again, we ran with my friends, and many, again, women escape because again they targeted men mostly, and they arrested some opposition figures, and there was news stories about that reported that a lot of famous opposition figures people were arrested at that rally. Yeah, so it felt different. It was a small rally, but led by prominent people. But again, it was a shock that the government ignored and didn't. So I felt that even these famous people cannot protect us, that this is another barrier kind of broken in political sense, that nobody was respected and the opposition had no power whatsoever. And I saw it with my eyes at that rally.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so after the second rally in September, okay, could you tell me more than afterwards? Any other events, any other incidents that you like to describe in your life?
So the situation changed, and there was a lot of hearings, and we covered the detention and questioning all people who participated in those rallies that year, 2014. And in early 2015, there was a huge tragedy that we believe that the government forces killed the most prominent opposition leader, Vasily Ivanov, and there was a lot of news around the world about his assassination. And
And
I know
did you ever meet, or did you happen to know Vasily Ivanov at
yes,
all?
he came several times to Beacon, and he gave a lot of interviews. He was a real leader. Everybody knew him in the country. Yeah, so it was a huge shock, and it was another turning event for the whole country when we lost, when Vasily was assassinated. Basically, the opposition in Russia lost its leader, so it was beheaded, and that was.
And do you remember the? Yeah, thank you very much. Do you remember the date when he was assassinated? When Vasily Ivanov was assassinated? What month? What day? Or what year?
Yes, it was the end of February 2015, maybe February 27, 28, around that time.
Okay. And yeah, it says here on your application the 27th of February. So, okay, so he was assassinated. So then, after hearing about his assassination, could you tell me anything else about your life, or anything else that you like to talk about after hearing about his assassination?
So we all felt the consequences in terms that the government also introduced a lot of new policies to restrict the media freedoms. There were not much freedom before, but after the assassination, when the opposition basically lost the leader and had no power left much, so the government cracked down on everybody, especially media and the stations like ours who were considered independent. And also because we received some foreign funding, and that became a huge problem for us, because now everybody, a person or an organization receiving any international foreign money will had to register as a foreign agent with the government, and had to submit much more reporting, and they intruded into our work much more. They monitored everything, our work. So everything changed after that assassination in our.
Okay, how about your in particular about what your life was, what you did perhaps after hearing the assassination? Can you explain what and anything that you did personally after hearing the news, or could you talk about that?
I think we just tried to survive. We continued our work at the station, trying to cover and bring the truthful information about politics, but it was almost impossible. So our reporting was muzzled in most cases, and the censorship increased. So for me personally, it was almost impossible to produce the news stories that I wanted. Everything was censored. We had to go through the government agents to get clearance on our reporting, and I couldn't do so. They censored everything that I tried to do in our news segment, and so basically since 2015, it was a game of catch, in terms that the government tried to monitor every word, what is written or said on the waves on radio. It was very stressful every day. It was stressful, and some periods when they tried to push for new legislation, it was harder. They just made us silent. Some way, we still try to produce and still to deliver news as much as we can, but the work became much harder.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Did you participate in any additional rallies, any additional protests? You mentioned two back in 2014, March, and in September. Did you participate in any protest rallies or any marches after that?
Yes, only recently, because after that big rallies, it was not really possible to organize any rallies, so opposition kind of stopped doing that until what happened this year in February, when Russia openly started a war with Ukraine, and there was smaller rallies and people were marching in early March. Specifically, my boyfriend was arrested at the latest rally. So there was a smaller demonstration. I would not call it a big rally, but there was a small demonstration next day after the start of the war in February 28th.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Let me interject here now. I asked you, have you participated in any other rallies? I asked you after the ones in 2014. You spoke about the assassination of Vasily Ivanov, and I asked what you did at that point. And on your application that you submitted for asylum, it says here that on the day that Vasily Ivanov was killed, on his day of his death, that it says that you joined thousands of others in a rally on the day of his death, protesting against the murder, against the government. I asked you a couple different times, and you did not mention anything about going to that rally the date of his death. Could you tell me why, for what reason you didn't mention that, even though on your written statement it mentions that you went to a protest with thousands of others on the date of his death in 2015?
Yes, I think I slipped my mind right now, because I'm now thinking about Vasily. It's kind of raised a lot of emotion in me. So I'm thinking about the date he was killed, how we were all in state of shock. Yes, we went out. There was a spontaneous, not specifically organized, it was spontaneous marching of people, not only opposition, but regular people who knew him across the country. But in Moscow, he was a very popular young opposition politician, relatively young, and he had a huge charisma. And yes, people went out without much planning. So that I remember. Yes, I was there. It was a morning march. It was not so much, didn't feel political per se. People were just mourning a person they knew. A person was very charismatic, and a person who was very active since the Soviet Union collapse. Everybody knew him. So it just felt like a lot of regular people, like shopkeepers, students, and construction workers. Everybody were in the street marching. Not so much marching. I mean, they were shocked. They didn't. First of all, I felt like people did not believe it was government who killed him. There was some rumors that it was some criminals, but he was killed near the Kremlin wall. So he was killed next to the government seat. And it was, for me, it was clear that it was the government did, but most people who came out, they didn't believe it was government job, government assassination. So it was a different nature to this march. Yes, I was there and felt safer in terms that it was just regular people.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay. Okay, and you we're now getting into more specific details about the recent events this year. Um, Anything between 2015, when Vasily Ivanov was assassinated, and this year, is there anything else that you like to describe? Any other events? Any other occurrences that you like to speak about? Um, Before we get into events of this year of 2022.
Yes, I started talking about that we're designated foreign agents and make our life much more difficult in terms of censorship, reporting on our activities, and the bookkeeping. Everything became much, much harder. And censorship affected me specifically, that I couldn't do my job properly. So it became very hard how to do my job when they don't allow reporting real news. So that was kind of the main. So we still try to cover what's happening in Ukraine every day since that time. We still try to, as I said, the opposition lost its strength and lost its leader. So we try to cover some of the other opposition leaders who emerged later on, but again, there was the sense of that the opposition totally lost its momentum, and there was nothing can be done at that point, with Russia being very aggressive. So yeah, so it's just been very stressful work until this year, when everything just collapsed for us.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's then talk a little bit more about the events of this year. Obviously, you're here now in this country. You left Russia and you're claiming asylum. You're asking for asylum here in this country. Can you tell me about the events of this year more in detail, about your life, what happened to you and or members of your family, acquaintances, and be as descriptive as you can about these events.
So this year in February, Russia invaded Ukraine, and that was a huge tragedy. I consider a huge tragedy. The government increased the censorship, and even the word war couldn't be mentioned anywhere. So we had to say special operation instead of war or aggression or invasion.
Could you tell me about Beacon, about the Beacon radio station? How did the Beacon radio station describe the Ukrainian campaign? Do they have a specific phrase that they call this Ukrainian campaign?
Yes, they called it a big mistake, a tragedy, and
I'm sorry, you said what kind of mistake?
it was a tragic mistake, tragedy for the country. How else we called it? Political mistake. It was a political mistake. We also used the word war, which was not allowed to use in any news stories. So this Ukrainian campaign became a huge tragedy and political mistake, and we tried to name it that. So the main event that happened, first my boyfriend was arrested during that protest, and the next day when the war started.
Okay, you mentioned your boyfriend. Could you tell me your boyfriend's name and the date when he was arrested?
His name is Mikhail Oblonsky. He was arrested the next day when there was an anti-war rally on February 28th this year. So we were together at that march, but then I had to leave because my friends called me, but I left him there in the crowd, and then I learned that he was detained, and that was a huge shock. They put him in jail, and so I knew that I may be next because they will find out who he was with at the demonstration, anti-war demonstration.
Could you provide for me a little bit more about the demonstration? You mentioned a demonstration and that your boyfriend was arrested and he was put in jail. Who organized the demonstration, and what was your participation, if any, at that demonstration?
So it happened, first of all, the announcement of the war came very unexpectedly, that Russia invaded Ukraine, and it was shock for many people. So there was no any specific leader in this demonstration. It seems again, just regular people came out in the street the next day after the aggression began.
And I'm sorry to interrupt. So yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. When was the demonstration? The date of the demonstration?
It was February 28th.
February 28th. Okay. And how many people were there at the demonstration on February 20th? Approximately, how big was the crowd? Do you know?
I don't know, and because after that we also didn't. So all information was repressed, and because there was no any specific organizing around this. It seems like a lot of people came out, again, regular people who were shocked by this war that started the same week. I think the demonstration was 3 days, maybe it was 2 or 3 days after the war started. The people just came out because it was weekend, I think. A lot of people came out just to protest and to express their shock. So it was pretty chaotic. So the people tried to block some roads. The police came and started to clear the roads so the traffic can move. But people were all over the place.
Did you personally participate in this demonstration? Were you there? You mentioned your boyfriend being arrested and imprisoned. Were you also there personally at the demonstration?
Yes, we went out with my boyfriend, and a lot of my friends also texted that they're out in the street, so we tried to find them. I was there with him until the group of my friends and my colleagues said that you have to come to closer to the office. So I left him, and after 15 minutes, he calls me and saying that he was put in a van and detained. Since that, he's still kept in jail until today. So yes, I was there. I just left him, and when I left him in 15 minutes, something happened. They just arrested that whole
okay. And
section.
okay, thank you. And if you could just tell me, you were there at the demonstration. What were you doing at the demonstration? Were you doing anything specifically that you like to speak about, or what was your what were your activities, or what did you actually do at this demonstration?
So I was I think I just joined people. I tried to communicate with my colleagues, but I was not on an assignment. I was trying to understand, make sense of the tragedy together with people and try to feel, to be with people of Moscow together.
Okay.
So I didn't do
And
anything
you know,
specific. We just marched with a group of people.
okay. And approximately how long were you there for at the demonstration? Do you know how long you participated? How period of time you participated?
I don't remember. It was a long day because I went, I met my colleagues closer to the office. We kind of negotiated what to do next and if we should go and film something. So I was called basically to work. So that's why I left my boyfriend. I ran towards our radio office of our offices, and I met my colleagues, and we were kind of doing this emergency meeting right on the street. So this is what I was involved in. But at some point they told me, try to get home and don't put yourself, once I told them Mikhail was arrested. They told me, okay, you have to go home and hide and erase all your messages from your phone, and because through him they would find me. So my colleagues were also scared for me, and they told me, no, you should not cover anything today. You should not work today. You should run home and try to figure out how to get to safety, because once Mikhail is there, we don't know what will happen to me next. So we
Mhm.
felt that the net widened so badly because suddenly many channels, even on our chat, was kind of not working properly. So we were scared that something really, the whole internet was under surveillance right now, right at that moment.
Okay.
So yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Now you mentioned that your boyfriend was there with you, and he at that rally he was detained and put in prison. Do you know what his current situation is? Have you had any contact with him currently, or do you know what's going on currently with his situation?
Through his friends, I know that he's still detained. I think they detained so many people. There's no, they started doing some court hearings, and but they keep people in jail for a long time right now. So he's still there.
Okay. Do you have any contact, or is there any way to contact him now, or to see how he's doing? Anything like that?
I have a friend who is in contact with his parents. He himself does not have any contact because of last time that his parents spoke to him, he said that there's no even phone line available because so many people, and they try to control the communication. So they know where he's detained in Moscow, but there's no communication even with his parents cannot reach him anymore. And his attorney that they hired also cannot reach anybody. It seems like there is a massive number of people, and the courts and the law enforcement also not kind of just keeping people there without any movement because just of the numbers.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Besides your boyfriend, you have any other anybody else in your family, friends, colleagues, relatives experienced anything similar to your boyfriend? Anything else happen to anybody else in your life that they'd like to talk about?
Yes, the most important thing, my employer, basically, the radio beacon was shut down on March 1st, several days after this March, after this demonstration. Its board of directors decided to close because one of the main sponsors and the controlling body were from the state energy company, so they just decided to shut the station because they couldn't deal with the opposition of the journalists and producers who wanted to cover political news, and also the designation of foreign agent basically stopped any good reporting that we had before. So our frequencies, radio waves were taken by the state radio stations across the country. So basically my employer doesn't exist anymore. And the head of the radio had to leave the country. I think he went to Europe right now, also in hiding.
Okay. All right. Any others? Any other friends, colleagues that you'd like to speak about that about their lives or anything similar to your anything that would relate to your particular situation?
Yes, I in my affidavit that I attached, I mentioned several friends. I know at least one friend was killed in detention, and there's no information what happened to him, but also many of my school friends and my university friends and my colleagues were detained. From some of them, we don't know what happened to them. Some people left abroad, some came here, some went to some European countries, especially my colleagues from the radio. Most of them escaped. As far as I know, they are abroad in different countries right now. But I heard, because I'm afraid to use social media or messaging applications to communicate with my friends back home in Russia. So right now, I only communicate with people who managed to escape abroad. And they tell me that, that colleague or that friend is detained or questioned and threatened. So it's a huge number of people. I also attached reports about the known opposition figures and the celebrities and others who spoke against the war, what happened to them. And many also had to leave the country, the public figures and other. So it feels like what's happening in the country, people are leaving in huge numbers, people have to escape, and also many people who cannot or had no time, they just detained and tortured. Yes, and the new laws put imprisonment terms on people who say certain words like a war, or say no war, and you can get like 5 years in prison just saying that. So every small thing, anyone opens their mouth, get a term in the jail. So that's, I also attached some new laws that were just passed in Russia to stop the public discourse about the war.
Okay, thank you very much. I was able to look at those, and I appreciate that you submitted that to me today. Okay. Okay, is there anything else? I know we're speaking up until the month that you left. You left in March also. Just soon after the radio station was closed down. You said the Beacon radio station was closed down the 1st, and you left a week later. Anything else during that last week, between the time that the radio station was closed down and the time that you left Russia? Anything else that you like to speak about? Anything else happen that you like to talk about now?
I was basically in hiding, trying to stay very quiet, and also try not to stay in my apartment too much and going from friend to friend. And I knew that they will find me. My name was known all this time. I was working at the Beacon as a journalist, so my name was known to the authorities. And now they knew my boyfriend was in detention, so they probably got information about me from him as well. And they had all the recordings of our programs that were on air about the war before. and our coverage, political coverage of all those rallies over the years. So I felt in this last week, I'm trying to survive. I knew they're going to arrest and kill and torture me because I don't believe in judicial system. And with these new laws, I felt like I broke all of them. Just speaking out before and after and being out in the street that week
Okay.
after the war.
Okay, thank you. You just mentioned a few seconds ago that, about being, beaten and tortured. When I did ask you in the beginning of the interview if you're feared that you would be tortured, and you at that point you said no, but now you just mentioned torture. Can you explain why you said no in the beginning, and now you feel that you would be tortured if you return to your home country?
So maybe I don't know what is the definition of torture here, but now thinking about it, I know that if they detain people, they don't give you food, they don't give you access to your lawyer, they don't let you speak to your parents, and this may be torture. Now thinking about this, how it can break a person, and this may be a torture. When I filled out the application, I thought torture is something physical people do to your body, but now thinking about what my boyfriend is going through probably, and my friends going through, now I feel like this is real torture. This is torture what I feel here, even thinking about all my colleagues and friends, what's happening to them right now. So it might be that you may call it torture, so all these things that they do to people.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, we're going to get to the next section, which is your fear of returning to your home country. So, is there anything that you like to add about your past experiences, your life in Russia that you haven't already described? If not, then we're going to go to the next section, which is basically what you fear now returning to Russia. If you could respond to that.
I just want to mention that the government was very repressive before, but what happened the past several months kind of crossed all types of lines. I feel like the increased brutality of government is real. We see it in this new series of laws and how many people they still arrest until today, every day, for people speaking out or saying something against the war. So I mean, the government is unstoppable right now because the government has no international restraints, anything. So I feel like how much it's impossible, but it's still the Russian government became this unstoppable killing machine. That's all. All other details I already shared.
Okay, thank you very much. So we are going to get then to the next section, which is your fear of return. Could you tell me in your own words, now that you've been here for several months in the U.S., you came in March, and you've been here for several months. Could you tell me, what do you think would happen now if you were going to return to Russia, if you're going to return to your home country? What do you think would happen to you, and why do you believe that would happen?
Well, there is no way for me to continue my work being in Russia, because all I did all my life is working for this opposition radio, independent radio station, trying to cover the truth about politics and events. Now they have all the information about me. I feel they will immediately arrest me. They put me in jail. They will torture me. I will never see any justice because I know the system. I do not trust the system. And
I'm sorry, just to clarify, when you're saying they will arrest you and so forth, who are you referring to by they?
the police, the security forces, the all these government agencies that work in tandem to round out people, and the censorship was total already before. So they have all the information on me, and they know I will not be silent. This is all I did in the past 10 years, is covering the news for Beacon, so they know who I am, and they know I won't be silent. They know I will use any channels to tell the truth.
And how do you think that they would find you? For example, if you were to return to Russia, you go back there. How do you think that the police or the security forces would be able to locate you, to find you?
Well, in Russia, it's impossible to hide. I mean, you're controlled, and I lived in the same address all my life since I was born. I don't want my parents are retired, but I don't want them to feel the danger. So the parents know, the government already, they received the call because of my boyfriend. They received the phone calls from the police to ask where am I. So they know where I live. Even if I go to my friends, they're probably very scared. So I cannot find it. I wouldn't be able to find any shelter because of how people are scared. Everybody is scared. Whoever is left from my old friends are scared. My colleagues all left the country already. So I don't know where can I hide, especially outside Moscow. I do not know many people. I don't know where to find help and shelter outside Moscow. So that's another thing.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I know Russia is a very large country geographically, as well as there's many people, obviously, that live there as well. It's a very, very large country. Could you safely relocate in another part of the country? You lived your whole life in Moscow, but Russia is enormous. Could you safely go back and then live peacefully in another section, another part of the country?
Russia is very central government, and all governors report directly to Moscow authorities. So I mean, and in the reports I attached, it says that the demonstration were crushed and many people arrested across the country in many cities and small towns across the country. I don't think that there's any safe place in the country because it's an authoritarian regime. I mean, there's control and censorship and surveillance very much everywhere.
Okay. And besides what you've already mentioned, why do you think that the police, the security forces why would they target you specifically if you went back to Russia? Anything else besides what you've mentioned, about being opposition leader, opposition journalist, and participated in protests against the government? Anything else that you like to talk about? Why you believe you'd be specifically targeted?
Well, people know my face. I was a kind of public figure since I was produced the news for many years. I mean, I'm not just a regular person that's afraid to say anything. I felt like I did a public service. I covered news. I produced political news for many years. I participated in rallies. I'm 100% sure they have all information on me, what I think, my views on political situation, and what I'm going to say. And I cannot be silent. I mean, that's another thing. And I cannot do anything else. I lost my employment, and probably I cannot stop doing journalism. So the government knows this, and I know this. So that's the last thing I wanted to add.
Okay. Okay, just have a few more questions for you, and then we're getting close to the end of the interview. Thank you very much for all the information that you've provided. Um, have you ever traveled or lived in a country which is supports terrorism or terrorist groups? Have you ever been to those types of countries or anything of that nature?
No,
Okay. And have you ever been involved in any way whatsoever by giving any kind of aid, support, material support to any violent groups or any terrorist organizations or any terrorist groups, anything of that nature?
no,
Okay. And would you ever in the future uh, be affiliated with or support any group or organization which sponsors violence or sponsors terrorism?
no.
Okay. Are there any final comments that you like to make before we conclude today?
I want to live a free life. I want to be able to express myself freely and live in the society where my values are respected. I cannot do anything or say or express myself in Russia. I cannot work, do my job in Russia. I feel like Russia is corrupt and have no value for human life or for any democratic values. So I want to live in a free country and I'm seeking protection. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I appreciate all the information that you provided, and I do thank you very much for your testimony here. Let me tell you what the process is going to be at this point. We'll make a decision on your asylum request, and the decision could be either one of two possibilities. One possibility is that based on your testimony, both your written testimony and your oral testimony, and based on the asylum laws of this country, of the US, you'd be granted asylum here, and you'd be able to live here, work here. Ultimately, if you choose, you could become a resident and a citizen in the future. So that's one possibility. The second possibility is that we don't have sufficient information at this point or level to grant you asylum, or the information that you provided did not meet the criteria of an asylee here in the United States. So what would happen then is you'd be given what's called a referral to a judge, an immigration judge in the future, and you'd have a right to explain your situation once more in front of an immigration judge. So those are the two possibilities. You'll be getting a decision in the mail as soon as possible, and one of these two possibilities. And I once again thank you very much for coming in today and providing me the information. I appreciate it.